This is the My Club Sports podcast, brought to you by My Club Group, the number one funding solution for grassroots sports clubs. It's here where we talk all things sport, and we're also delighted that you've found us. Each week we'll try to bring you some thought-provoking natter along with news, views and interviews, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit something along the way too. In this edition we're delving into triathlon and the world of the IronMan, where few dare to go. We'll discuss what the COVID-19 pandemic has done to the sport and its participants. We'll also find out what it takes to push our bodies to the absolute limit. And we'll talk to the lady who's flying the British flag for extreme endurance sport. Plus, there'll be a little light relief with the quickfire hat-trick. That's all coming up on the My Club Sports podcast. Hi, I'm Simon Millam, and joining me on this extra special edition are two people who lead the way at the top of their profession. Firstly, as always, it's a warm welcome to a man who has run Sports Desk on some of Fleet Street's top tabloids and has been the king of football writing for over 3 decades. Please welcome my co-host and regular agent provocateur, Mr. Rob Shepherd.
Good day, good afternoon. And as David Frost once said, good evening, but not at the moment.
But the star of this week's podcast is a lady who's arguably one of the fittest women in Britain, if not the world. She's represented Great Britain in numerous European and World Championships. She's also scaled the Eiger. She's a triathlete supreme, and according to her blog, she is somewhat responsible for the lack of flour in our shops at present. Please welcome Miss Amy Kilpin.
Hi guys, nice
Amy,
to be here.
Hi.
Amy, hi. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, not least because we look forward to sampling some of your cakes at the end of this. It's a well-known fact that Rob and myself can always be bribed with cake, or most things actually, I think. Needless to say, we're not the fittest we've ever been, but we're keen to learn a little bit more about fitness. And while we know the basics of a triathlon, which is swimming, cycling and running, we want to know what drives someone to want to do these epic Ironman challenges. But before we dive into the intricacies, I've got to ask, how's the lockdown affected you? Because while some events have started to come back on schedule, how deflating is it to see the likes of the Kona Ironman in Hawaii rescheduled for February 2021 and the Taupo 70.3 Ironman in New Zealand rescheduled for March 2021?
Yeah, it's challenging for anyone, I think, that's in sport right now. These are very interesting times for all of us. I mean, in terms of the events, I haven't got that worked up about the fact that events have been cancelled. I think, it's outside of our control. Event organisers have a huge challenge on their hands. And we kind of have to support them, and if they need to reschedule the events next year in order to put on a safe event, then we have to go along with it. And it's just one of those things, it comes with the territory, it comes with the kind of global environment that we're in right now, and triathlon racing is by very nature pretty global, especially when you're competing at world championship events. So yeah, I mean, it is of course deflating knowing that your races are being rescheduled and cancelled, and there's still a huge cloud of uncertainty in the air. So some of the events that I was signed up to for the early part of the year have been rescheduled for the later part of the year, and there's still quite a bit of skepticism about whether they'll actually take place or not. But you've got to just keep doing the training and keeping it consistent. I guess there can be a tendency to kind of just step back a little bit from training. I know some athletes have, because you haven't got that sort of motivation, that goal, or at least an imminent goal of a race coming up. But yeah, I mean, I'm still enjoying the training. So for me, I love the training, I love the process, and I'm just enjoying, even with that kind of intangible goal in sight of the events, whether they happen this year or next year. I'm enjoying the process of the training, and we are working on some key areas where hopefully we just come out the other side in a better position.
And cake baking, no doubt. That's good. I mean, you had a tremendous season. I mean, hitting a peak by becoming the overall age group champion at the Ironman 70.3 in Buenos Aires South American Championship. I mean, what are the goals moving forward? Because ultimately, I mean, we've got the Tokyo Olympics being put back to next year as well. Is that an aim for you?
Definitely not. I am I'm not good enough to go to the Olympics, but it's a very different sport. The races that I compete in are 70.3. It's half Ironman event. with the eventual goal to go back to long distance, so full Ironman, and it's a completely different beast, really. They tend to be younger athletes going through the Olympic program, talent that's identified at a very young age, and they go through the kind of the Olympic funding, and I'm kind of a bit beyond that now, the ripe old age of 34. But yeah, I mean, last year was a really good season, and we saw a lot of breakthroughs. I started working with my coach, Duncan Grange from CC Racing, in January last year, and we just saw improvement after improvement throughout the season, and it culminated in the overall age group win at the South American Championship in Buenos Aires, as you say, which was an amazing race for me. He managed to peak me, I don't know how, perfectly for that race. So I think after the season we kind of sat down and thought, okay, I'm in a position where I'm on the podium in age group level in every race, so there's a tangible chance for me to potentially get a pro license and go professional in the coming season. Now obviously this COVID-19 situation has kind of scuppered that a little bit, but we'll just see what happens when racing comes back, and I'm getting to that point where I'm close. When you're sort of topping the ranks of your age group, it becomes a little bit less exciting, and you kind of want to start competing with the big guys out there, and it's a huge step up, right, from age group to pro. I don't want to take anything away from all the professional female triathletes out there who are representing us, and I think we'll just see what happens.
Can I just come in there, Amy? I understand triathlon. I mean, it's a relatively new event overall. Probably the last 15, 20 years. It didn't exist prior to that. Ironman, I don't really know, and I'm sure a lot of sports fans don't really know what Ironman is, and 70.3. Could you just give us an idiot's guide, of which I am to this, of what that it is compared to triathlon? I assume it's an extension of triathlon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you get so used to talking about it, you just assume that people know, but many people don't. So yeah, the full Ironman is a 3.8k swim, 180k bike, and then a full marathon off the bike, 42-kilometer run. The 70.3 is the half distance of that. So obviously a 1.8k swim, a 90k bike, and a 21k run. I did an Ironman in 2013 and 2014. And then at the time, the coach that I was working with at the time, we decided to go back to just 70.3 and focus on getting the speed up before we go back to Ironman.
Sorry, Carol, is Ironman mixed, or is it Ironman for women and for men?
Yeah, the brand is Ironman.
Yeah, I've got it.
So, but women compete.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. So when that isn't an Olympic sport as such at the moment, what is the sort of pinnacle? What's the Grand Prix, the Wembley, the Wimbledon of Ironman?
Yeah, so it's not Olympic sport. Olympic distance triathlon is almost half Ironman. So you're looking at a quarter of the distance of an Ironman. The pinnacle is Kona for anyone who's competing in long distance triathlons. I mean, the 70.3 World Championships doesn't have quite the coveted status that Kona has. So, I mean, our goal, myself and my coach, is 100% to try and get to Kona one day. Whether that ends up being... So the Kona is the Ironman World Championship.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, whether we end up going there as an age group or as a pro, I mean, that would be great. We'll see.
Where's that due to be staged next?
It's always in Kona in Hawaii every single year.
Okay.
So the 70.3 World Championship, they choose a different location every year. So obviously it was due to be in Taupo, New Zealand this November. But they've had to reschedule that because of coronavirus, and I think it's now pitched for being early next year, but I think that very much depends on how the situation plays out over the next 12 months or so.
correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but given the lockdown, is it right that people can qualify for the World's Championships via a virtual competition? I mean, if so, does that sort of devalue the process of the things that you go through?
I can't 100% comment on it. I did see somewhere that IronMan were saying that they were going to release some slots for the 70.3 World Championship. So they're kind of hinting at it. But as it stands at the moment, I don't think they are allocating slots. They may end up doing a virtual championship instead, which will be a different kind of race stream. I mean, I'm not really getting involved in the virtual racing. It just doesn't excite me, if I'm perfectly honest. I like being out there in the race environment, seeing people and being in the mix, and it's just not exciting me. So, and you know, we have a really, really structured training program that we're sticking to. So we're just carrying on doing our own thing and letting that one be.
A thought just struck me, actually, given that the event is annually in Kona, is it annually in Hawaii? Should they just not have an extra leg or a presentation where you do surfing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of World Championship surfing competitions that take place in Hawaii anyway. But I mean, that would make an interesting quadrathlon or whatever you'd call it.
You could head that up when you've created a new sport.
I can't surf.
Yeah, but I've done a bit of research. I've done a bit of research on you, and apparently you couldn't swim. I mean, listen, I'm well beyond the age of when I used to run cross country at school, and I have got a bicycle. I cannot swim, so I don't even know, as hard as I could ever get trained, I just can't swim. I sink. I mean, I can swim, but not very well. How did you? I think you said swimming was your weakest sport when you were younger. And in fact, I would like to know what sport you did when you were maybe in your teens or whatever, what your main sport was and why you moved on to triathlon. So I'll ask that first. And then secondly, how did you become a mermaid having not been a swimmer at all?
Firstly, Rob, I want to tell you that there's no such word as can't. So they say. So hey, you know, you could be the next.
I like that. That's absolutely true.
So I actually didn't come from a background in sport at all. I didn't really I'm like one of those unconventional people. I didn't come from any background in any discipline. I didn't really like sport actually when I was growing up. I went to school and uni right throughout. I rode horses, you know, which wasn't really a competitive level either. So I can't really classify that as a sport. So yeah, I wasn't really interested in it. I started full-time work out of uni and started kind of climbing mountains, and then I ran a couple of marathons just for kind of, you know, tick box exercise, and it kind of just proliferated from there really. And it was all about the challenge for me. So I remember distinctly training for my first Ironman. I built up the distances. I started with an easy triathlon, short distance triathlon, built up the distances, decided to give an Ironman a go. And I remember one day my mum said, "When are you going to give up all this silly stuff?" And I said, "Oh, once I've done the Ironman, it was just literally a tick box challenge for me." But in the process, I ended up getting quite fit and progressing, and it's just, you know, something I kind of held on to really. And in terms of the swimming, yeah, you're right. I started out in 2012. I couldn't swim one length of front crawl, and how it played out was I joined a local triathlon club. And joined their swim sessions, and they had full swim sets written down for every single Monday night. And I joined the club, and I turned up and I was like, look, I can't do the set because I can't even swim a length, so I'm just going to have to kind of do my own thing.
No such word as can't. Come on, you told
me. So but you know, they were doing these full on sort of, you know, 400-meter reps and stuff. I couldn't even do a length, so I had to just keep stopping in between. Wow. And then just really, it was just a process of getting in the pool regularly, having coaches look at my swim, analysing my swim, a lot of dogged persistence, and yeah, just hard work really, because swimming is such a technique sport, and I think if you don't come from a swimming background as a kid, it's quite hard to learn as an adult. But on the flip side, it was kind of a blank canvas, so there wasn't kind of, you know, a bad stroke that we had to completely deconstruct and kind of, you know, rehash to make it an efficient stroke. It was kind of starting from scratch. So in that way, it was a little bit easier, I guess. But yeah, just a lot of hard work.
What advice, Amy, would you give to someone starting out, and what continues to motivate you to do it?
Do you know what? The motivation side changes all the time. I think your goals and focus shifts as you progress through the sport. So my motivation to train and to compete 5 years ago is going to be very different to now. And I guess that ultimately at the core of everything is just the desire to better myself. I think, it's just that kind of relentless, I want to improve on my times and my performances. So that's what's motivating me. And I am so well backed by my coach. I've never had somebody so invested in me. So that's also really motivating, to have a team of people around you that are working hard to help you achieve your goals. So I've never found motivation an issue. I love the training. I love getting out. I love being outside. So that, is a massive plus for me.
Clearly you're hugely motivated, and you, as you say, there's no such word as can't, and you literally climb mountains and then set new mountains for yourself. And at the moment, the immediate future is with the IronMan, it would seem to me. But what would be the next phase once you got to a stage where you think you've achieved as much as you can, or you've got as far as you can? What's the next thing for Amy in the sports world, or in the world in general?
For me, I started out doing triathlon and climbing mountains just for a personal challenge, and so that I was having amazing life experiences, which sounds really cheesy, but I was only doing it for the experience. I've raced on every continent apart from Antarctica, obviously, which I think is amazing. Triathlon has taken me all over the world. I've now got friends through social media in every corner of the world, and I've had some incredible experiences. If you even took the race out of some of those trips that I've had, they would have been amazing experiences. So it's always been about that for me. And then the performance is, I guess, just a kind of, a nice bonus to that. So I guess I just want to carry on experiencing cool stuff and meeting cool people and inspiring people to also take up these kinds of sports and to achieve whatever they want. And
remind me of echoing the words of that great soul song: "Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no river wide enough."
Please don't sing, Rob. I've heard you sing.
No, but I won't sing.
I think we should hear this.
I think it should be Amy's theme.
It should be Amy's theme, you're right. Ain't no mountain high enough.
Having read hundreds of mountaineering books, Everest is still kind of there at the back of my mind. So maybe, mountaineering also you can do, later in life. So maybe there's an opportunity for you there.
I'm not coming with you, Amy. Thanks for the offer, but I don't like heights. When you talk about going pro in various sports, obviously you've got the pinnacle of Premier League players. They get paid fortunes and pay tax, an awful lot of tax on that. But as far as rewards for winning and competing as a pro in triathlon, what are we sort of talking at here? Are there financial rewards? Is it worth doing as a pro? Or do people have to sort of do it as an amateur sort of sport and get paid on the side for being a pro? If you see what I mean, do they have to have other jobs as well?
So unfortunately, triathlon is an industry which is notoriously a bad career choice, I'm going to say.
You should try journalism.
I used to be a journalist, actually. But yeah.
Who did you work for? Who did you work for, Amy?
I used to write as a shipping journalist for a trade publication.
Okay.
In shipping.
I've seen your blog, and you're really
very
good
niche.
Yes, but you could write on it. I think if you can write, you can write on anything, and I think you could probably turn your hand to whatever you want to, because you write very well. I've seen your blog.
Providing you don't showboat.
Providing what?
Yeah, writing
providing
about
you don't showboat.
Oh, yes, well done, Rob. Yeah, great.
I thought that was quite funny.
It was actually, yeah. Someone would have found it funny somewhere.
Someone somewhere.
But how do you sort of begin training for an Ironman event? I mean, is there sort of a set structure to your routine? Do you have to do your swimming first and then you're running and then you're cycling, or do you do a mix of it, Amy?
Yeah, usually I think because you're trying to be good at 3 disciplines, people will tend to, if they can, if time allows, to try and do 2 training sessions a day. And whether it usually comprises a swim and a bike, or a swim and a run. Not so much bike and run on the same day, because it's quite demanding on the body. So there is like a lot of careful kind of management to balance, obviously, because you're competing in 3 sports. The volume tends to be quite high, and it's quite a lot of wear and tear on your body, and managing kind of energy levels and everything as well. But I mean, there are loads of good training programs you can download off the internet for beginner triathletes. The key thing is consistency and building up the distances slowly and conservatively, so you don't just go and try and run a marathon that fits into your training program. So being kind of sensible.
I was thinking, when you've been in lockdown, I mean, it's an interesting thing at the top of the show. Simon said about fitness. I mean, there's some of us that actually, because of lockdown, we've actually got fitter, because in a bizarre way, certainly myself and many others, that the pub hasn't been open, been going for long walks. I've seen muscles that I've forgotten about for many years in the calves and things like that. So one can go walking and one can do cycling, which even if it can be an indoor bike, or you can been allowed to go out. So you can keep that those 2 disciplines up. Unless you've got a very, very big bath, how do you keep the swimming going?
Wow. I actually live about 200 meters from the sea. So if you are prepared to get very, very cold, then that is pretty fortunate, actually. Having that access.
What general part of the world? Obviously, we can't say specifically, but what general part of the world?
I'm in Poole.
Oh, okay. So you swim to Sandy Bank, say hello to Harry Redknapp, and swim back, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I swim to the Isle of Wight and back.
Oh, of course you do. Of course you do.
Way to Harry on the way. I mean, what differences are there in your diet from when you're not doing triathlons to when you are doing triathlons? Because do you sort of eat what you want, or do you? Obviously, you burn calories pretty quickly anyway, I'd have thought. But
yeah, I mean, it's always a balance of you can probably have a few of the things that you probably wouldn't usually have during a big heavy race season. Right now we're fairly relaxed on it. I've had a few conversations with my coach. We're not being like super strict, but we're keeping an eye on it. So it's kind of a balance of allowing yourself to have a few treats, not being too fixated on it, because race season is long for triathletes. I mean, my race season is 7 or 8 months, and it can get quite intense, as you can probably imagine, when you're training 20 hours a week or whatever. You're racing every month. You can get very kind of stuck in and very kind of blinkered with the focus. I mean, I certainly can. So to be in that kind of intense mentality 12 months of the year isn't sustainable. And right now, because we don't know when race season will resume, we're being a little bit relaxed. So if I fancy a glass of wine or baking some chocolate brownies, then at the moment we're being quite
what do you do to come down? Because obviously it is an intense sport, and you have to be focused, and you have to watch what you eat, etc. What do you do to unwind?
I mean, I love reading. Having a background I've got an English degree, and so I've read a lot of books. And
what's the best one you've read most recently?
Most recently, I'm currently reading I watched a documentary about Jane Goodall on Netflix, which is very good. She is the chimpanzee lady. I'm sure she loves to be called that. So I'm reading one of her autobiographies. It's just simply called Jane, I think. And it just talks about her life and how she went.
Best book of all time? Silly question, obviously, because you've read loads, but...
Yeah, I find these kind of questions really hard, I have to admit. I mean, I've read hundreds of books, and it's everything from like really trashy novels when I'm on holiday to really intense business books or sports autobiographies or classics, like a load of the kind of English classics. But one which does stick in my mind is called With Winning in Mind by Lani Bassam, which would be very relevant for your listeners. Basically, it's this guy who becomes a Olympic shooting champion, gold medalist, and it's all about the mental side of performance, which I find really interesting.
Very interesting.
Excellent. Well, since you hate questions like this, Amy, we're going to put you through the quickfire hat trick. We're nearly at the end of another fascinating My Club Sports podcast, but before we go, there is just enough time for the quickfire hat trick. These are the rules. Queen of Triathlons, Amy Kilpin, and King of Triathlons, Rob Shepherd, have 30 seconds each to give their view on 3 different topics, and I get to judge their opinion, awarding a point to the person who makes the best argument. Rob Shepherd, Salt Sports Desk. Yes, here we go, Amy. Rob Shepherd. We'll put Rob on the spot first. Rob, Salt Sports Desk, your first question is this. You have to bake me a cake. What sort of cake are you going to bake for me?
Madeira cake.
Why?
Because my niece lives in Madeira.
Oh, it's not because it's bland and horrible then.
My brother-in-law comes from there as well.
Oh, fair enough. All right. Amy, I'm going to put you on the spot. Same thing. You have to bake me a cake, and you're going to win the point anyway because I hate Madeira cake. What sort of cake would you bake for me?
I love your rationale, Rob. That's so random. I would bake triple chocolate brownies because they are a speciality, and I've been told that they're the best brownies in the world by a number of people.
Okay, well,
probably one of my only skills.
Oddly, my niece in Hawaii bakes brownies, and they're probably the best in the world. Yours are probably second best because I've not tasted yours, but I await them anyway. You still win the point because I like brownies.
Competition.
Yeah, Amy, this second question is for you. Name one movie that I should see that will always make me well up.
Well up. Do you know what? I don't know whether this is everyone's piece of cake, but I used to love Homeward Bound because it's about a dog, and if you love dogs, it's really sad.
Okay, that's a good answer. I like that one. Rob.
It's really old school.
Yes, I'm old. Rob.
It would be easy for me to say. It would be easy for me to say Casablanca, which I re-watched the other day when I broke out the pilchards when I knew lockdown was getting pretty bad. But Billy Elliot, that's the film that makes me well up the most.
Oh, I like it. Okay, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Field of Dreams because I like Kevin Costner when he says, "Dad, do you want to play catch?" It always makes me well up, that one. So
Marley and Me. See, I'm all about the animals. I just literally cry at animals. I love them.
Okay. Rob Shepherd, the final question is this. Music. You only have time for 2 albums on a long flight. What would they be?
What's Going On by Marvin Gaye and Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye.
Okay, good answers.
But one for political reasons, one for other reasons.
Are they not singles, not albums?
No, they're both albums. They're singles as well. Let's Get It On and What's Going On and Let's Get It On. They're my 2 desert island discs.
I think you have very different flights to me if you're listening to Let's Get It On.
Okay,
well,
come on.
I'm not going to respond to that. It depends whether it's short haul or long haul.
There is no response, no suitable response for on air anyway. Amy, what would your 2 albums be, and what for your very different flight?
I've got to go for anything Ed Sheeran. I really like him. I think he's really talented.
Ed Sheeran.
Oh my God! If you were playing Ed Sheeran, I'd get a parachute. Jump.
I'm a millennial. What can I say?
Is the one with the really whiny voice? Is that the one?
That's James Blunt, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. I'm with Rob. I'm old school. Now, what would be your second one, Amy?
Probably Coldplay. I'm quite generic with music taste.
Okay. All right. I'm going with Shakin' Stevens' greatest hits, just to annoy Rob, and Elvis Presley's greatest hits. Well, that's about all we've got time for on this edition of the My Club Sports podcast, which we hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please spread the word, and if you haven't, by all means, go and buy lemon drizzle cake and not Madeira cake. Either way, we'll hopefully be back with more shows soon. Huge thanks to Amy Kilpin. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this call with triathlon on the podcast. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have you back again, hopefully. Likewise, it's been a delight to listen to Rob Shepherd, whose opinions are always on point, despite his considerable taste. So from myself, Simon Millam, and all of us here on the My Club Sports podcast, which is brought to you by My Club Group, the #1 funding solution for grassroots sports clubs, we hope you stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you again very soon.